Okay. So, you mentioned a bit ago that you experienced, I think you said, some frustration with a message that I put on the Discord. And so now that I'm worried that that makes it sound adversarial from the very beginning.
You
Um,
said very terrible things.
um, I basically said, like, I'd like to do a recorded chat with whoever wants to be involved, sort of describing to a third party what it is we're doing every Saturday, or just with the group in general. That's what I remember writing. Anyway,
Just
so
felt it.
sorry.
I just felt it.
No,
Please.
that's it. That's pretty much it. Just for context for the for the video.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. I think that what we're doing, I'm just
Mm,
like, oh my God, we're still like the group's still trying to figure that out.
mm.
Um, mm,
Do you did you get that impression from the way I worded the message, or did the message sort of make you think about that?
yeah, right, right.
Okay.
It's more about like it got me thinking.
Hmm.
It's actually like I guess I'm happy or should be happy that there seems to be more focus on deciding on purpose and mission now in the
Hmm.
group. But I think it's like I was wanting to do that like 2 months ago or whatever.
Hmm.
And I felt like hardly anybody really wanted to focus on that at the time. At least that was my perception. And I kind of kept holding out for it. And then finally was like, maybe 2 weeks ago when we met the group, I I decided like, okay, it's time to throw in the towel. Like there's
Hmm.
not there's certainly not consensus on what a purpose for the group would be. And there are people who didn't even want to nail down a purpose, I thought.
Yeah.
And there does seem to be some consensus, or maybe not consensus, but there's kind of a movement in a direction now.
Hmm.
But it seemed to me less of purpose and more of, well, we're going to be an intellectual discussion group. Like it's like they're, this doesn't sound mean, but like my perception is that there are people in the group who had like really high ambitions for the group, like wanted to do something great and game changing.
Hmm.
But there was a lack of clarity of vision at that level.
Hmm.
It was too noisy, different opinions, lack of commitment to any particular vision and strategy at that high level of aspiration. And so that collapsed. And then because people wanted to be clear on something, we just ended up falling down to the level of we're going to be a little more than, a typical intellectual discussion group.
Hmm.
And for me, that's disappointing.
Hmm.
I mean, it's good. It's nice, like an intellectual discussion group's nice. But I've been part of groups like that for years, and it's cool. Like it's good. But like I thought, you know, with this group of people, we can do something game changing, you know.
Hmm.
And so I'm not sure that that enough coherence can even be achieved with this group because we didn't start with a clear purpose.
Hmm.
And that's where then I just, even though I wasn't really trying to be much of a leader in the group, like I just wanted to be helpful where I could be helpful. But I was finally like frustrated enough. I'm like, I want clear, bold vision and strategy. So that's where then I said, okay, guys, like I'm planting a flag, like let's
Hmm.
do X. I'm not 100% sure if that's the right thing to do, but how about let's just pretend that, that's a good idea and let's just see if we run into problems or not.
Right.
And so I
Right.
said, let's focus on, let's build a long-term community that survives the chaos of the 21st century together.
Hmm.
We got together around that flag. We realized maybe we want to change the emphasis a bit. That's my perception of what happened. And now It's like, okay, we're aligned towards finding deeper levels of coherence together as a community. That's what we're focused on right now.
And so you're talking about the six of us, right? Something coherence. What was the title of the event? The first one, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just calling the group Coherent Connection.
Coherent Connection, right? Yeah.
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 So, like that feels so. I picked something. We adapt.
Mm-hmm.
We can adapt more, but at least there's something there that we're actually doing. And also feel like then we can make high quality mistakes that we can actually, like, where we can get clear signal from the like the feedback. Like if I am clear intentioned about what I'm doing and then it doesn't work, I can actually learn something concrete from it. If I'm stumbling around and not sure what I'm doing, then I don't think I'm going to get clear signal from feedback, because I didn't even know what I was doing. So how am I going to know what's wrong if something goes wrong?
Yeah.
That's my framing.
Right. I think there's a lot of value in there. There's a lot that makes me feel worried or maybe even hurt. There's a lot that I like that gets me excited as well. I'm actually not sure where to start. I guess, well, I'll start with the hurt because that's a little scarier to say, especially because we're recording now.
You're starting with the scarier part?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being brave.
I think that's something of an instinct in me at this point in my life, to kind of look at the scary things if I can get to the point to know that I'm scared by something, and sometimes that's not easy, then I try to look at it. But anyway, I guess what is scary or sad is the image that the image of failure, or of bold ambitions not being met and then settling for something less,
Yeah.
And and I also am not sure. Well, I agree and I disagree on it. I agree that, I definitely had a clear vision of what I wanted to do. And then what ended up happening was something something more decentralized and emergent. And I think as that happened, I was excited about it, because when that happens, I think, oh, great, good. The more decentralized, the better. And, I'm not sure if I even regret it anymore. I think last we talked about this, I kind of said, like, I wish I'd been more, had a clear, like, sort of dictated a clearer vision more. And I probably could have, and people would have followed because they gathered under the thing that I called out for. And so to sort of be a bit more bold and more of a leader probably would have been fine. It would have been palatable. People wouldn't have revolted or anything. But now I'm actually not sure, because there is, especially with the last Saturday with Gordon leading it, that to me was a kind of a achievement of decentralization, where what previously felt like they might have been essential cogs, me and Ariel, maybe Ariel more so, at least for the actual functioning of the event. We backed off, and the thing ran anyway. And actually, it was one of my favorite groups. And then as well, sort of while I'm on last Saturday also felt very each group still feels better to me. It feels like we're learning to do something. And I do think we're stumbling around, and I do think that we get a different value from that than what you're describing with planting the flag and going there. And for the viewer, I'm also involved in that group that you're talking about, that. And that's it's a different kind of it's a different kind of value. It's, well, it's what you said. I'm just probably going to reflect a lot of what you said about it, but the setting a flag down and saying let's go here, and then you go for it. It's like I don't know how to, if it fails we learn something, we're on a path. It's a different kind of learning than what I see the group doing, but I still feel like the Saturday group is learning, and maybe not as an entity. Like maybe the entity itself is still so, I won't say really chaotic anymore, but it's still so unformed that I wouldn't say the group is learning exactly in the same way that I would say our group of 6 is learning. That group feels like it's, even after just 2 meetings, it's like we formed and now there's a direction in some sense, and it's like that's going to be more rapid. Something, what you said about the feedback really resonated with me. There's I can't put more words to it. Whereas with the Saturday group, it's more, I guess, when I think about what really excites me week to week, it's how the people in the group act, and how, you know, the culture in the plenary, like we are all getting better at doing this thing rather than the thing itself is getting better at going and doing something.
I want to reflect on that a bit. We're all getting better rather than the thing itself getting better. Did I hear that correctly?
You heard it. Let me rephrase it a bit though, because then when I heard it, I didn't like part of it, even though I did say it.
Okay.
I would just correct it and say what I really mean is that comparing the two, comparing the small, the thing that you and me and the 4 others are doing, or anything else that's sort of similarly built, comparing that to the Saturday group, feels like the smaller groups are, it's like we can more quickly and easily call that an entity. The entity has some sort of goal, and then it goes towards it. It learns rapidly, and it gets going in a way, in some sense. And the Saturday group feels like it's doing that, but way slower. And the what I witness and gets me excited is not so much that the group is gaining clarity, although I think that's happening, but not so much to be exciting. What excites me is how good people inside the group are getting at being inside the group. So it's because the pace of the big group itself changing, I think, is too slow to be really exciting.
So is it that you like seeing people getting good at handling the uncertainties of what the group is? Like what is the competency that's increasing?
When people speak, you know, yeah, like for one example would be, and I guess I'm always thinking about plenary when I say these things. One thing is that when people speak, there's a lot more respect for the time they're taking. Their points tend to be more concise. The whole idea of having a direct response, when we introduced that convention, it was good, but now it seems, I don't know, even better. The conversation in the plenary seems better, and it seems like it's just a function of the people getting better. But I guess it's also people getting to know each other. And now I'm just wondering if I'm just kind of struggling to make a distinction between the Saturday group and these smaller groups, and maybe I'm just pulling something out of thin air. But I don't know.
So I mean, there's something you're feeling in that larger group that seems special to that versus a group that's like a small focused group.
Yeah.
So it seems like neither of us is super clear on what exactly that is. Like you're speaking to it a bit. I don't feel like I understand it well enough to really summarize and say, oh, this is what it is.
Maybe part of it is it's just exciting to see it living and breathing and being sustaining to some degree. As I said, especially with Gordon doing the call or leading the event last week, and us thinking through how to have people lead it in the future.
Are you just excited about things happening without having that kind of leadership that we know makes things happen? Like it's almost like this is a different kind of space, and you want to see that this works.
I think
And
that
when
is
it
it.
does, mm,
I think that is it. And it could be like some kind of relief that it's still working because part of my ego is in it. You know, I I identify strongly with it. It's part of my projects these days. And so um, yeah, it's exciting that it's still happening, and it's exciting that it doesn't seem to be flagging. It seems to be um, maintaining an altitude of sorts, and also learning, like becoming resilient. That's what's exciting. It's a big part of the excitement for me. But I do want to note explicitly that that does leave out um, the directionality of it. That it seems like you are finding frustration in not like the somehow it doesn't bother me that there's no that well I wouldn't say even no, it doesn't bother me that it's not clear what the purpose is. uh, does it bother you? Let me just ask without assuming, does it bother you? Is that a good description of what's bothering you or frustrating you?
lack of clear purpose,
Yeah.
explicit,
Yeah.
definitely
Huh.
very frustrating for me.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, see, I think okay, we're getting better at something, but to what end?
Yeah.
Point.
Right.
Now, it sounds to me like this is maybe I'm wrong, but it's almost like a sort of an anti-authority or anarchist almost kind of leaning there within you that's like just wanting something in that space to do well.
Yeah, I think it is that, and let me actually speak to that a bit. um, Yeah, it's exciting to see something working without a leader, because I know that that is extremely rare, and arguably impossible. Not like it's easy to go, well, that's not going to work. It's a reason. In fact, it's a reasonable thing to say, well, that's not going to work. Um, in fact, Ariel has said that she's been involved in a lot of like anarchist movements, and to have to have no leader is actually a problem. It doesn't work, you know.
Mm.
And I think that's right. I think that's correct for the most part. And so there is something really exciting about seeing a group kind of self-organize without the clear leader, the clear, without a purpose being dictated, um, as almost like an axiom. Planting a flag is sort of um, being an axiom of sorts. And so it's exciting that there's a growing coherence, even if the rate is quite slow. Yeah, that's exciting. And uh, and I guess I want to say it's not just I think part of the reason I'm excited is not just because I have anarchist roots, you know, um, ideologically, but also because that seems like that's going to have to be part of what we learn to survive the collapse of blue church stuff. If you know Jordan Hall's Blue Church.
It's just vaguely.
Okay, just I mean, top-down sort of command and control structures where a centralized entity is making decisions or disseminating information. Um, and it's linked to this idea you may have heard me say before of like, I feel like the only option in the future will be to be embedded in a network and operate within a network. And you won't really be able to get a top-down view of the whole thing, and I don't think anyone will have a top-down command for anything. We'll just have to be in a network. And so if, to the extent that that's true, we're going to have large groups of people, larger than 4 or 6, which uh, can self-organize without a leader. Well, and now that I say it, I'm not sure. Do we have to have that? I don't know, but it still feels crucial somehow to me to be solved, and I'm excited that we seem to be solving a part of it.
So I appreciate right now that I feel like I have more clarity on what is of value to you, in
Me
that
too.
group.
I do too.
Okay, nice. We did it together.
That's right.
And I mean, that sounds like it could be a purpose. I mean, if it were chosen as one. I guess I then wonder why that wouldn't be explicitly chosen as a purpose. It's like, hey, you want to get really good at self-organizing. And like, what kinds of skills do we need to learn in order to be really good at that? And here's why we care about self-organization, because we think it's going to be very important for a better world. So like, even that to me is like, okay, well, you could make that a thing, and that's your purpose, but like, still that wasn't done. And so like, I wonder, like, why wasn't that done?
Well, part of the reason could be that this is just what I'm excited about, and I no longer have any power to make that move. I lost that power by the second meeting or somewhere around there, because my initial sort of feeling, for better or worse, was to sort of step back as much as possible. And maybe I didn't even have a choice. Maybe I think I had a choice, but if I tried to assert any kind of authority, they'd kick me out. I don't know. I really don't know. But in any case, I certainly don't have the power to state the purpose now, and I can only imagine that to try to do that would be rejected. I think at this point the group expects that if there is to be a purpose, it would have to come to I don't actually know how. I was going to say unanimously, but that doesn't seem possible.
So is consensus a decent enough approximation?
I think so. Yeah. But they would expect to come to consensus on the purpose, and it hasn't happened yet. Maybe I still feel like we're getting better at answering these questions, but maybe this question is so hard we have to level up a lot before we can even get there. The group still doesn't have a name, which is kind of getting awkward at this point. But it's
frustrating, Logan.
Yeah. Am I? Okay.
No, when you said we still don't have a name, I'm like, oh.
Yeah. I keep saying like the community, which makes me feel like I'm being, I don't know. Something about the way that sounds makes me cringe a bit. Oh, the community.
The community, capital C.
That's right. Yeah. But what did I want to say now? But I guess it's still exciting to me that even if the purpose, the question, what is our purpose, needs us to level up a lot to answer, I do see us leveling up, and I also don't see us losing altitude. So I'm happy, and on top of all that, I don't need to do a lot of work anymore. Like, it's not like my little baby I need to take care of. Especially with this last group, it's doing its own thing, and I participate now. Maybe I'll lead a group in the future. I would like to, but even that, it's not the leader doing it. It's like, oh, it's the week's leader, and that's a whole different, much more comfortable place to be for me. It's a phenomenon I'm happy is in the world. I'm happy to participate in. I don't know if I mean, I still sort of, there's something in me that agrees with what you were saying about there being this amazing vision, inspiring vision, that is no longer, well, I don't even want to say it's not really being pursued. My version of it isn't, at least not directly.
Yeah. Well, hmm. if you're to take two groups and see, one is very focused on pursuing a vision and the other group is not, like which one, a year later, like based on various evaluations, like I guess I want to compare like what happens, like which group outcompetes the other. Of course, if you haven't determined the purpose of the second group, I guess it's hard to measure them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I imagine that on most measures we would care about, the one that had a clear vision would outcompete the other one.
But only in its only measured by its goals. I mean, I think the point you just made is
Circular?
it's no, I mean, no, the thing you said just now about like how the only way we can measure is by the yardstick of the goal that the first group had set. The other group will have meandered, but it's like to say that the meandering group didn't achieve the goals that the first group set out to achieve. Well, of course.
It's hard to proceed from here.
I'm curious about your frustration still, because I'm pretty happy with the state of affairs now. I don't feel frustration, even though everything you're saying I don't disagree with. So if I don't disagree with anything you're saying, well, except for the feeling of frustration, I think we have pretty similar pictures of what has gone on and where the group is. So then why is it that I'm not frustrated and you do feel frustration that there's not I don't want to put words to it, but yeah, could you just talk more about your frustration maybe?
Well, I mean, I guess there's the part of the frustration that's about like, hey, humans are on track to, for us to all destroy ourselves. And like this consensus seeking way of doing things, that I don't see evidence that has tended to work out well. In fact, I think we have very clear evidence that it tends to not work, at least not in the extreme. I mean, I like to call it the Occupy Wall Street problem.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also just the part of me that just wants to feel excited, like, oh, we're on track to do something really cool and amazing, and we have an idea of what that is. It's also that, but I think the first one's more important. So I don't imagine that a group doing what the Saturday group is doing right now is going to have any great game-changing breakthroughs doing that approach. However, a group that says, we have a clear vision of, we want to be, even if it's a very open-ended, fluid, adapting sort of purpose, like at least that it's actually a purpose that we decided on. Like it could be, we want to be very good at self-organization, or we want to have really strong coherence, or we want, whatever. Like it's an actual purpose, and you can actually work towards that. If you really want to be really great at self-organization, you could deconstruct that and say, okay, let's look at self-organizing systems. How do they work? What are their properties? What are the skills that we need to learn and master so that we can be really good at that? And then you can start strategizing towards it.
Right.
So to me, it's a little like, I see the strategy component to like get there. Do you want, like, if you want to be like a super organism, like you need to actually train for that. I think sometimes we use these terms like, a super brain or a super organism, where I don't think it applies because I don't think there's enough coherence in the group of people to actually
Mhm.
apply that. Like,
Mhm.
are you just a collection of atoms floating around, or are you actually integrated to form a super brain?
Mhm.
You know, like that doesn't just happen by accident. Like atoms don't just come together into the same space and go, oh, voila, now we're a brain.
Right.
Right? So, and of course, that took, maybe billions of years of evolution,
Mhm.
hard grinding, natural selection, weeding out so much, you know, a very painful, destructive process, actually,
Mhm.
in order to get to something that's beautiful and just works that you
Right.
can flow with.
Right.
And so flowing with nature is it's a very hard, catastrophic process. I think by thinking things through strategically, we can actually create things that are far more peaceful and harmonious than what nature natural, like its natural process.
Mhm.
Like in some sense, I feel like nature is not very natural according to what people think of as natural. Like it's actually like it's a really tough process to go through,
Mhm.
evolution.
Yeah.
So do we want to take that path? It's a very long path.
Mhm.
Evolution eventually does its work, but like, can we go faster than that? Can we
Right.
go more peacefully than that in a way? Like,
Yeah. Well, I think we can, and I would say that's part of our role as humans. It seems to be that we are all about strategizing and planning and removing ourselves from the wonder of the present moment to build a better tomorrow. You know that. I mean, that's um, it's yeah. I sometimes I feel like there's a little too much emphasis placed on being in the present moment, or like there's this idea for some people that that's all there is to be happy, just be in the present moment. And I actually don't think that's right. I think that it's in our nature to think ahead and work on things and design things.
yeah,
So I definitely feel all that. I
yeah.
guess and yet I'm still comfortable with this group kind of, let's say, bumping around and kind of stumbling forward, even though it's not forward, it's just in a direction. Although I do think there's some directionality to it. But the lack of a clear purpose or direction still doesn't bother me. And I think it and I guess part of it is because maybe the Occupy Wall Street problem isn't unsolvable, but maybe to have an entity that can self-organize, you need to go through this period where it's kind of stumbling around. I mean, a newborn baby is a useless a useless thing. I mean, in terms of utility and directionality, um, it's also not like it suddenly, you know, at age 2.5, it suddenly transitions immediately into thinking years ahead. It actually, when it's born, it has no plans, and then maybe at age 1, it has plans of, I don't know. Let me think of something semi-realistic, like it has a plan to sort of crawl over to this side of the room, and that's its time horizon that it can deal with. And as it grows, it can the time horizons of its purpose and planning can extend. And I get that is a metaphor that comes to me when I think about this group, that it's kind
Mhm.
of bumbling around and it barely even knows what it is and what it's not and what it cares about. Um, and that metaphor gives me a lot of comfort with its current state, actually, or makes me relax about it.
I think if there's a core group of people who are very committed to kind of that, in a sense, that metaphor that you're describing, like we want to reach that place of maturity together.
Hmm.
And it's clear that you have this set of people who want to do that, and they're going to stick with it through the hard phase and make it happen.
Hmm.
I'd feel more comfortable with that because again, it now sounds like you have a purpose. But right now, my sense is more like, people may stick around, they might go. Who knows, like what? I don't know. Is there enough commitment there to get to that, if that phase even exists?
Yeah, I don't know, but I definitely am hopeful. I'm quite hopeful, and there is a lot of stability in the people who show up, which is pretty incredible. Eight Saturdays in a row. I mean, um, that's it's not exactly picking up a part-time job, but it's something in the same ballpark in terms of commitment. You know,
Mhm.
um, yeah, and I go there feeling like I know the group that will be there. I know I who's going to be there. Oh, that group is going to be there. That's like a stable. It feels like a stable entity, even if three of the people are gone and there's three new people and stuff like that. And I still feel like it's valid to say that that group is learning, that entity is learning. Um,
Yeah.
so I still, it's weird. I'm almost nervous that I still don't understand how, or I can't feel your frustration. I don't understand it. I can't. I it's like I want to ask you now for a third time to explain it, but I don't want to because you have talked about it twice now. So that's not me directly asking you. I mean, just speak to what's alive.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel a sense of incompleteness here.
Hmm.
I mean, I really want to accomplish something,
Hmm.
okay? And based on what I know of life, that group seems improbable to accomplish like as much as a group that is much more focused, even if much smaller.
Yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
And so there's that. So I don't, it certainly doesn't seem like you're looking as much through a strategic optimizing kind of lens here. I'm not quite sure what it is that you are looking through.
Hmm. It's very experimental for me. I think that's a big thing. Um, Seeing it as an experiment. How does it, if it fails, how does it fail? What,
What
go ahead.
So the experiment is to like, yeah, what is the experiment? I guess that's what I don't
Okay.
see a clearly defined experiment.
Yeah. For me, the experiment is, can you get a herd of cats to self-organize?
Okay.
And how long does that last? I mean,
Okay.
I'd like to riff on that a bit more. It's just, I have a hunch it's a good question. Um, I guess, it's actually quite linked now that I'm really thinking. It's quite linked to David Schmachtenberger and Jordan Halls. I think they both talked about this, the idea of a phase shift for society. Things will suddenly shift, and then we're all doing something radically different. And a lot of the implication there is that maybe not that there aren't any hierarchies, but that these big hierarchies, the blue church structure, no longer works, and we need something totally different. Um, so, I mean, I guess this is sort of like I'm starting to see it as like it's a it's a test for a way to come to consensus, a way to sense make together without a leader or some predetermined axioms or rules. If we can start where we started, where there was like no rules and there was just some ideas and lots of different directions, and lots of people were there. There was about 30 people there at first, and some of them left, and some people have come and left now. And if from there we can actually get to a point where something does uh, last and start to self-determine and do some impressive things and have some autonomy, agency, maybe agency is a good word that we should bring in, then that's, sorry?
Agency at the level of the group.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I agree, it doesn't have much agency now. But if we can get there, that would be such a, not improvement, what's the word? Not development. It'd almost be historic, but that's not the right word either. It'd be such a good thing to have done and see how it went and learn from. And then if it fails, that's good too. Maybe we learn it can't be done, or maybe we learned it can't be done this way, or maybe maybe there was some personality conflict that made the whole thing, go crazy, or maybe we need more people, or maybe we need less people. There's so much we can learn from it. But did I do a good job explaining of what the experiment is, why I think it's important why I'm excited about it?
Well, let me see. The experiment is to test whether we can self-organize this particular group of people. So I think of, has this experiment been run before? Well, the sense in which it hasn't been run before is that it's this particular group of people, but has such an experiment been done before?
It's a good question. Well, let me brainstorm on in the ways in which it hasn't, because you could probably argue it any way you wanted to, right? Okay. You kept saying whether things are similar or different. One thing that makes it unique, I think, is the emphasis on authentic relating, or dialogos, whatever, that whole set of ideas, and basing everything on that. James last week said, what was the word he used? I don't remember the word, but it was something like, it feels so nice and warm here, because we do emphasize emotions, and what's alive for people. Another thing that's new is the format we've stumbled upon, which is get a bunch of people together, go into breakout rooms a couple times, come back into plenary, and see if you can have a coherent conversation, even though there's 20 people. But that point didn't feel particularly satisfying. So let me think a bit harder. I'm reminded of, or I think of the Stoa. They have calls that are similar in certain ways, in structure. But, well, actually, this is pretty relevant. They are always guided and hosted by Peter Limberg. And he, actually, when I started watching those after we did our thing, I was like, dang, he runs a good, tight ship in a way. He's so welcoming and warm. And that's what the Stoa is. The Stoa is Peter Limberg hosting it. If he stopped hosting it, something would probably continue, but I don't know to what extent you would call it the same thing anymore.
Okay. So that's centering around a particular person, perhaps.
Yeah.
Your point of view.
Yeah.
What? Okay. So I agree. I mean, if you have sufficient reason to think that self-organization is something worth experimenting with, I can see where that would be important. So my sense is that self-organization of the kind of variety we're talking about here has a really bad history. Do you have a different sense of that? Like, I'm not sure what I would point to as like not only leaderless, but also purposeless to some, or not purposeless, but not a clear purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, there may be cases where you don't have a clear leader, leadership's distributed, but everybody agrees on the purpose or mission. Right. But where we have neither of those clear, do we have, I guess, it sounds like you're interested in the novelty of it, and I'm concerned about the novelty of it in this particular case, in the sense that I don't think it has a good track record.
Hmm.
Like I don't think it's novel in the sense of not being tried. I think it's novel in the sense of like if it actually worked,
Hmm.
like but I think it's unlikely.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, let me. One thing that just jumped out at me just now is um, maybe I'm struggling to make it novel in my mind. But in any case, what jumped out at me is the emphasis on holding the space open for inquiry and continuing to ask questions and not closing down on. Let me back up a little bit. I want to like think about your question of, um, do these sorts of things have a bad track record? I'm actually struggling to think of an example of any group that, because how do you even like, yeah, any group that doesn't have a clear purpose and doesn't have a leader, how would you even define that? I mean, how, like, what other examples are there? I mean, you have neighbors in a community, a physical community, but then you have the common purpose of being in the community and making sure the streets are safe or things like this. Um, there's maybe part of the value I see is that the group is prioritizing converging on purpose that the whole group resonates with.
Okay. So we are trying to find purpose through consensus.
Mm-hmm.
Now, alongside that are people in the group who didn't want to have discussion about purpose, right? Like
I don't know.
Really?
Well, okay. Let me say I recognize exactly what you're pointing to, but I just would rephrase it a bit
Okay.
because I was very much part of that, and in a way still am part of that pushback against purpose. And just speaking for myself, anyway, what I didn't want, I didn't want the purpose to be, let's say, decided by 70% of the people, and then 30% of the people would be disconnected from that purpose. I wanted the space of inquiry into I'm down to inquire into the purpose, in fact. And I wonder if everybody really would be, but I was afraid of foreclosing the question prematurely.
Why are you afraid of that?
Well, I wouldn't be afraid of it if it seemed like there was a shared purpose, I guess. If For example, the first meeting, one of the first meetings, we talked about like what is important to you. It was some self-referential question about the group, and then there were like these three themes. One of them was sense making. I don't remember the other two. One was, I think, change making. So we had these themes, but there was no way to. Yeah.
A connection, sense making, and change making.
Right. Right. And there was no way to really consolidate that into one purpose. If there was, I think I would be happy. I would be happy to see that as one purpose.
I mean, you could easily choose the change making purpose and then say that the other ones funnel into that. Or maybe you could just say that mutually help each other.
Yeah, but the group didn't.
Yeah, much to my dismay at the time.
Yeah.
I tried to push in that direction, but I wasn't interested.
Right. Well, and I guess I still, in a way, I value that about the group. That the group still is carefully meditating on its purpose in a way. Well, okay, meditating might be a bit too tranquil of a term. I'll take back that exact. But
that's really interesting to me. It's like there was literally the opportunity to unify those three missions into one. I tried to, like I said things along those lines. People didn't seem interested. And I wonder why, because that was literally an opportunity to converge. Like we could have actually tried to do that,
Hmm.
and we didn't. Why didn't we do that?
I didn't, and I didn't, and still don't really see the opportunity that you're describing
Like
to
literally
converge.
after the first event, like we
Mhm.
have these three things that people care about. We could have said, okay, guys, how are we going to fit all three of these together? We could literally talk about it. We could literally make our entire next Saturday be focused on this question of
Mhm.
what do we do with the information we just got back from the group? We
Hmm.
see these three things, we synthesize together three different main things people care about. What do we want to do with this? How are we going to synthesize all three of them into one unifying vision?
Yeah.
People didn't want to go meta, so it
Mm.
didn't happen. They
Mhm.
wanted to focus on particular issues or whatever. And so, um,
I want to point out a interesting contradiction. I don't know if contradiction is the right word. I want to point something out. So, if I can just reflect what you said just now, it's that there was an opportunity to sort of feed the information back into the system and massage it into maybe a clearer purpose. And then there was a resistance from people not wanting to stay meta,
yeah,
and people instead wanted to talk about specific issues. And something has flipped now for me with that, because now the problem is, like, the group wants to talk about something, they want to talk about it, they want to have direction. The group said, no, we want direction, we want to, it's too meta, it's too self-referential, we want to talk about race, was the one. I don't remember if that was exactly the thing. And so it's almost like it's almost like a desire to have a purpose, talk about race or whatever it was, precluded the option of thinking more deeply about what the purpose was.
okay, yeah, I guess so. So
Do
how
you
does that?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't understand the like contradiction or dilemma there.
It's a flip of some sort. Let me try to go over it again. So a frustration would be that we didn't take those three themes and feed it back into the group to talk about what the purpose was. What purpose should we have? We could have made that move, as you say. We had that opportunity.
Mhm.
Um, Instead of taking that opportunity, the group wanted to talk about, I don't know, it wasn't race because that was a few weeks after, but there
Yeah,
was some specific question, and of course at that stage it heavily involved me and Ariel trying to massage what people wanted into some answer. But in any case, what am I trying to get to here? Um, People wanted direction. They wanted direction, so they wanted a specific flag planted in the ground so bad that they were unwilling to think further on what the direction should be. They didn't want to be meta. And if you're talking about what are we doing, that's the meta that they were resisting, the meta that question demanded. That's the flip or the contradiction that it seems important somehow. But I'm still struggling with it. I just noticed it.
so it's that they. Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought of the word direction for that previously. The desire to talk about particular issues.
It's a bit of a stretch, but I guess what I identify at it seems to be some sort of relationship or identity between that group rejecting being meta and in favor of having a specific topic, and the frustration that you feel with the group not having a direction now.
Yeah, I'm not seeing. I don't. seeing connection between what I'm feeling and people. I thought of it as just, these are people who basically just wanted to get together and chat with people, Rebel Wisdom people. So there's that group, and then there's the group that wanted to like actually plan something out. And like, so I just saw it that way. But you're saying commonality between my feelings and the people who wanted to not go meta? Or did I get that wrong?
Yeah. Because it seems like the people didn't want to go meta because it's not going anywhere. I think was the fear.
Okay, I mean, I guess there's a certain sense there. I mean, if you're going to be, liminally in meta the whole time without ever making any decisions out of it,
Right.
then yeah, I mean, I guess I take issue with that.
Right. Well, I think that
But
it's almost like
but if
that's
you're
what you're taking issue with, right? Right now.
either that or the avoidance of talking about purpose. Either one are both concerned. I see both are concerning to me because I think we actually should nail down a purpose.
Yeah.
And I don't think we should stay in that process forever.
Yeah.
So like neither don't avoid it and don't take forever trying to figure it out, which is in its own way is sort of another form of avoiding actually doing it.
Yeah.
I almost feel like there's a kind of like such care about sense making that we don't actually sense make because we're afraid to actually decide on what we're seeing.
Yeah, I hear that. And I also agree that the question of purpose should remain important. This Saturday we are talking about values, which is not exactly purpose, but it's something close to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly the group is coming around to focusing more on purpose now. There are definitely voices for wanting to nail it down. I'm not sure though, because now you have to do the consensus process for forming purpose, and I'm not sure why I guess I wonder why there's a desire to do that. Versus, I mean, easily people could just say like, hey guys, I want to do shadow work. Who wants to do shadow work? Come follow me. There you go.
Well, and that is happening.
Yeah, exactly. So like you can, like, there you go, bingo. Now, I don't know if people are wanting a larger group. People are wanting just more people. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of this attachment to consensus personally. Like I'm totally cool with, I mean, if you agree on a common purpose, then, and you have a small group of people, maybe consensus can be engaged in more of the time. But if you haven't even agreed on purpose explicitly, and remember, I'm speaking from a standpoint of you can adapt your purpose too. So, I guess I want to get into this issue of maybe it's a little obnoxious to say, I don't know, but like my sense is that I've already integrated your perspective into mine. But can you integrate my perspective into yours? At least for, let's say, for a particular group, right? Like I get that you appreciate the things I've talked about. Like you also agree that strategy matters in certain contexts or whatever. But like, I can go ahead and say, okay, yeah, we should maybe have times where we reevaluate our purpose. Maybe we should have periods of, time where we kind of stumble around and we don't want to have any clear objective and we loosen up the rules. That we could do that for a period of time and then snap back into focus. And if, either something new emerged during that time and we shift to that, or we fall back on what we had before, I'm fine with that. Maybe that's a good thing to integrate in, but I don't see how you take what you're talking about and integrate what I'm wanting in there. It's almost like,
go ahead.
It's almost like you can integrate something less clear, something more noisy, maybe into something that's already clear.
Mhm.
but you can't take clarity and integrate it into something noisy. I
Hmm.
mean, not that I want to just say the group's noisy like that, but it's
Right. Okay. Well, let me just respond to that. Let me. I guess I'll start just by reflecting. So, you're saying that it's you can integrate sort of like a liminal space, I guess, is sort of how I was thinking about it. But noisiness, lack of clarity into a clear process of clarity,
Mhm,
dissolve a bit, and then recohere around either the same purpose or a new purpose. Right.
mhm.
So I understand that. But but to integrate clarity into a process that's noisy, it's harder to see that happening, or how does that happen, or when will it happen, or will it happen? Almost. Right.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
Okay.
And that's
Uh,
how I see it playing out. Is I feel like I'm integrating things maybe I hear from you and other people. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe we could do this. We could try that, while still maintaining my strategic lens.
with
But I don't.
with your group, that the coherent connections, that one.
Sure, and I actually mean it in the abstract, just in
Okay.
general.
Okay. Hmm.
But I don't see yeah, I don't see it going the other way.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I guess I would point again to the baby metaphor. That is what happens with a baby. They're just a bunch of, I mean, I guess maybe I'm speaking a little out of my field of expertise here, but I would guess it's something like just noise, and then the slowly, some process of cohering. And I guess what I hope is that a purpose will emerge from this. And I actually, I would argue that it has emerged a little bit. Maybe not purpose. What has emerged a little bit? Because I feel like there is a progress in the group, and there's a progress towards coherence, towards self-identification. Um, I guess I still hold a lot of hope that the purpose will emerge, and the direction will emerge.
Yeah. So maybe a lot of it just comes down to. I mean, if I were wanting to do a project like that, then I would say our purpose is to do this. Like we'd make explicit. I would get people on board with it. Um, I don't know. You're starting with a group of people who don't all agree on that. Like even like what you're describing, your metaphor and all that, I don't think everybody in the group agrees on that.
Hmm. Right.
So
Well, it certainly have something more interesting to say than, oh yeah, I agree. That's at least that. And yeah, who knows? Who knows what the response would be? It could be all sorts of different things. Um,
and it certainly is interesting to me that you hold out such hope for that
it's a
with a
little.
group of, with a group of people who don't all agree on that. See, if everybody agreed on your vision there,
Uh-huh.
then maybe I would be like, okay, well, yeah, and then you can strategize towards that to some
Right.
extent.
Right. Well, I don't know. That seems, for me, that's enough. For me, and maybe we don't have the time for the to resolve
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
something, but for me, it's enough to see this thing gain some kind of coherence, and um, watch as it does what it does. And if it gets lame one day, I'll stop. If it stops by itself, that'll be sad. And if it takes off, that'll be cool. And
You're so chill, dude.
it's funny. It's funny to hear that. Uh, People say that, and it's always kind of surprises me, because I don't. I don't think I started as a chill person.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we've kind of reached a point of giving up on getting further.
Is this
Um,
conversation committing suicide? Is that what's happening?
a tragic way to put it. Um, But I guess I agree with you. It does seem like there's some fundamental difference in perspective there that's kind of hard to get at, or our desires. And I mean, this is where I guess I tried to get in with you a few, maybe a month or two ago, was like, what do you want, Logan?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I still don't feel super clear. Like, like I kind of want to like see the fire in your eyes. Like, there's something you're going for, and you want it. And nothing's going to dissuade you. But maybe that's not for everyone. I don't know.
Well,
like, that's how I feel.
And maybe I just don't feel that way about the group anymore. Maybe it's just that simple. Maybe I'm happy to be a participant, but no longer sort of. Maybe I just don't have the inspiration to be a fiery-eyed leader anymore.
In general, or just with that?
With this, I mean, and that is related, I think, to the fact that I don't know. I mean, I think actually you mentioned one time, or it was somebody that mentioned, I shuddered when power came up. The topic of power. Definitely have learned that I have a difficult relationship with power. And I've learned just what you were just speaking about earlier about, what is your vision, Logan? And I realized that I could have, maybe not should have, but I could have taken that vision, taken it a lot more seriously, and stepped forward more boldly and led people in a direction. That's something I've learned for sure. But I think I've lost that chance. That's how it feels actually with this group. And maybe it's good. I'm still not. I go back and forth between whether, thank God that happened that way, or I missed an opportunity there. I don't really know, but I don't have the choice anymore.
I see it as a way to hack coherence very quickly.
Sure.
And then you can always adapt from there if there's better coherence and something else.
But David, what if coherence just comes and I didn't have to hack it? Oh my God, it just came. Whoa.
Well, that would be exciting, I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
I'm not holding out a lot of confidence. I think why not get moving with something coherent, like right now?
For sure. Well, and part of the whole thing here is that I feel like to some degree it's already borne fruit for me. This community, the group, the chats I have with you and others that are throughout the week that are smaller, I think that allows me to be, chill in the way that you pointed out earlier. It's because I got quite a bit, my investment is green at this point.
Yeah, well, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
That you sent out an email to get people, going in some direction. So really happy about that. Yeah.
Cool.
Very happy about it. So very true. Very true.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that feels nice anyway. Maybe not a resolution exactly, but pleasant.
Happy ending.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to end the recording. Peace, guys.
Okay.